Hello, everybody. This is Diskin Young and Kong Lee with Northwest Real Estate Entrepreneurs Facebook page, and we are doing another interview today. Like I said before, we're trying to put some interviews together where it's a whole bunch of mix of things. You know, last time we had a brand new investor where he was doing a wholesale deal, his very first wholesale deal. Now we're going to be talking to somebody who's a seasoned veteran in real estate entrepreneurship, and he's doing flips. So we're trying to just get a wide range of stuff. Feel free to reach out to Conrai and tell us what kind of interviews you guys want to see and what kind of stuff you guys want to see. Really quick, I'll give you guys my direct number is 360-303-8135. You guys can just text or call me or find me on the Facebook page and reach out and tell me what kind of stuff you guys are looking to see. That would be very helpful. So, Mr. Kong, tell us about who we have today.
Yeah, so it's I met so this is Bryan Phelps. Met Bryan about a year and a half ago. Is that correct, Bryan?
Yeah, that's about right.
Yep. I heard about his stories, and I can't wait for him to share it with you guys. Great story. He has accomplished a lot. You know, I'm real excited to have this interview and got Bryan to take a little time and come and join us and kind of share his stories. And his most recent flips.
Sweet. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was talking to Bryan before this, and him and I have talked quite a few times on the phone, but we've never actually met in person. So it's kind of good to actually at least put a face to the name, Bryan.
Yeah.
So yeah, welcome.
You're all right inviting me.
Yeah. So let's just start off and let's just dive right into the most recent flip. Let's talk about it. We know it's in Sudden Valley, and I was saying I haven't seen a lot of people that have done flips in Sudden Valley. So let's just kind of go through just first, you know, how'd you get the project and what do you do to it? And then we'll just kind of go from there.
Yeah, this was a real unusual one in that the property was owned by my in-laws, actually. They had moved out of town about 2 years ago and left the house vacant, and their daughters would come in and out. Family members would use it for a while and then leave it vacant. And they kind of decided out of the blue that they would finally sell it. So I kind of fell into this one. And they weren't really interested in making a lot of money on it. In fact, they just wanted what they owed on it back out. So I gave them a little bit more. The price they owed was $135. That was their loan balance.
Okay.
I bumped it up to $140 just to cover any closing costs, so they wouldn't be out of your pocket. Mm-hmm. And you know, I figured at $140 it was a pretty good deal. It was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath, 2-story house in a really good spot in Sudden Valley, just off Sudden Valley Drive. So that was an advantage.
Is that a sunny part of Sudden Valley?
No, there's a lot of trees. It's out of gate 3, so
okay,
you know it's
yep.
kind of dark. So I took possession of that, and the way the deal was structured, originally I was going to buy it from them, you know, get a loan, go through the whole thing just like you normally would, and then you know, then I would own it and turn around and sell it to the next buyer. But in fact, through Molly, my agent in your office,
mm-hmm.
she's my agent, she talked to your dad actually, and kind of asked him if that's the best way to go. And your dad brought up the good fact that you know, we're paying double excise tax. We treat it as 2 sales.
Yeah.
So that was a good point, and I thought about that, and it made sense. So then we structured a deal to where it was more of a lease option. So basically, they gave me possession of the house. I paid them a monthly lease of $1,750. And that was a couple $100 over what they owed, all their payments added up to. So I, you know, gave them a couple $100 a month cash flow. And then when we turned around and sold it, I would get credit for the amount of principal that was paid down the loan, which is about $800 a month. So that's kind of how we kind of structured the deal, which seemed to work out well. So I took possession on July 1st, got working on it. It took me about 5 months to finally finish it and sell it. Along the way, Molly was able to find a buyer for me about midway through the project. So it was just like a total win-win. You know, everything just fell into place. It was really great. Turned out to be a little more difficult a project than anticipated. I removed one of the bedrooms and made a bathroom that was adjacent to the master bedroom. So made that kind of a suite, added a nice walk-in closet and all that. So I converted it to a 3+2, which I think, made it a little more desirable for the first-time buyers and all that. So she found the buyer, and this one was kind of a learning experience for me because she found a buyer so early. I kind of gave them the option to make some decisions on how I'd finish it. I was going to
ask.
And that's kind of a mixed bag. I probably went overboard a little bit on letting them make too many decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Once you open that bag, it just kind of takes off, right? Like trying to herd a cat kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think in the future, if I were to do that same thing, which I'm not opposed to, in fact, it kind of gives me a little advantage, I think, on the marketing side. If I'm a flipper that's going to allow a buyer to come in and make some decisions, like on paint and carpet and that kind of stuff. So I tried that out, and they came in and decided on the paint, which was a paint I wouldn't have chosen. So I had to make it real clear that any money they put down for earnest money was going to be lost had they walked.
So you made the earnest money go hard at that point.
Yeah, and it was a couple grand, so it was an incentive for them to stick with the deal. I was going to let them choose the outside paint, which again was a color I wouldn't have done.
Yep.
Fortunately, I was able to talk them out of that. As the weather turned bad, I suggested, hey, let's take that off the table and you guys paint it in the spring, when it's a better weather condition and all that. So they chose the carpet, they chose the interior paint, a couple other little things, so all in all, it worked out okay in that regard. So as far as the numbers on the deal, so in the end, they ended up buying it directly from the owner. The owner never changed hands. So the eventual sales price was $256, which was kind of in the ballpark for houses out there.
Mm-hmm.
And we gave them a few concessions on the fact that they weren't going to paint the house. So the net sales price was like $250. You take out the closing costs and the amount they owed on the loan, and that came to a net of $105. So the way we structured it, basically they were paying me as a contractor. I came in, I fixed the property up, and they just passed the net proceeds after all those costs were taken care of to me.
Yeah.
So then I have a net income and took my costs, from that as if I were a contractor, and came away with only about $35,000, which was, typically less than I would normally set as my threshold to make on a project. But because it was my in-laws, because I had an opportunity for a project to work on, I kind of just went with it and knew that might happen. So that's kind of where we ended up.
One thing I want to ask with that, because I love the aspect of using the lease option on that because it doesn't require as much money out of your pocket. So on a cash on cash return basis, what were you getting? So how much physical money did you put into it yourself? And with that 35 getting back, I feel like that'd be a pretty good cash on cash return actually.
Yeah, the only money I put in was the cost of the fix-ups, which came to about $60,000. So 35 on 60.
So I think most people would take a 50% return.
Yeah, in this case, I didn't have to go through a lender, and pay those costs and the interest for the carrying costs and all that. So in that regard, it worked out well.
Yeah, it's just a genius way to use the lease option in order to not have to pay those costs. And like you said, you had the principal that you paid down come off of it, so you got that back on the backside.
So that was the added benefit, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So you weren't think about trying to use a hard money loan or something with that. You've been paying way more than that. Plus, exactly. You would have got through the hassle in the very beginning.
Yeah, just in fees alone.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then that's the first one I'd done like that, and it was kind of a blessing in that they allowed me to make the improvements I did. I basically did a full remodel, which in a lot of cases an owner wouldn't probably allow you to do. If it were maybe a mild remodel, flooring and paint and that kind of thing, you might be able to get the buyer or the seller to agree to that. but it worked out nice. And this was a family member, and they kind of let me take full reign of the project.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of one of my last flips was an owner contract actually, but I had all interest due when I sold the house. So I didn't pay anything throughout the entire time. And then when I sold it, that's when I paid them all the interest back. But I did own it. So actually, I've actually tried to do years. I haven't been successful yet in doing that with a flip, but I've been trying to do a lease option where I fix it up and then it just changes hands at the end, and they have to be okay with the profit I get because I put the sweat equity.
Right. So is there objection then? It's a risk on their part, right? If you were to
Sure.
do something they didn't agree to.
Yeah.
You,
And most a lot of people just want money now, their lump sum now, which it doesn't always make sense. So.
Sure.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that we actually do this interview with you, Bryan. I've always done like the own a contract or obviously the cash out. I'm about to do a lease options on a property, so I might have to touch base with you and see if you can help me out a little bit.
Sure. I mean, again, this was a modified one. I don't claim to be an expert on it. I want to get better at it because I think it's a good strategy to use.
Yeah. From my point of view, I think it's just another tool in the toolbox to use. Somebody that was looking for a cash out, maybe this wouldn't have quite worked for them. But you start getting a little creative with the way you can structure the deal, and you come away with a 50% return on your money. I think people would take that pretty much all day long.
Exactly.
So, I know that let's go back a little bit now. We see that you just did that project. I know you had a really good one with I Street, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that, and then just a little bit of your past so we just know where you've been, because I know you've been a full-time real investor for quite a while now, and you're a seasoned veteran. So kind of just tell us about yourself and then get into I Street just a little bit to see what people can see from that.
Okay. Well, I've only been flipping 4 years. I've done about 6 projects in 4 years, so that's not tearing it up to where too quickly, but I'm getting better at it, turning them faster. I've done, like I said, 6 projects. Each one has been a little bit different, so I've gained a lot of knowledge in different ways of doing it. My first project was with a buddy years ago, and we kind of just came in, did all the work ourselves, and sold it, and it was pretty standard, nothing fancy about it. My next one was on Lakeway, and it involved a house that was bank owned. It was just terrible. I mean, it was nearly a tear down. But the nice thing about that is it had a second house on the property, which is real unusual for Lakeway. And so that was attractive. The bank, actually what made it more attractive too, is the bank refinanced it for me, the same bank that owned it. It was WAFED. And they have a program where you can get some construction money as well. So, I mean, it was just a win-win in that regard. And the next 2 projects had to do with moving houses. So I'd always want to do that. And so I learned a lot in that regard. One of them was a garage that it was actually just a shell of a garage that I converted to a house.
Okay. I
moved them both out to Sandy Point and Ferndale. In fact, again, bought the 2 lots from your dad.
Yep.
There was an owner that had 2 lots available, and we got a smoking deal on it. So we just moved those 2 right in there, put foundations under them, and fixed them up, and those were really good projects. And then I Street was kind of a typical flip in that the house had just come on the market. It was just one of those things where I saw it come on, like an hour or less after it got listed.
Yeah.
I was able to put an offer in quickly, which I don't like to do because he wouldn't let me inspect it or anything. And it was either you sign it tonight or forget it kind of deal. So don't typically like to do those, right? It's kind of risky, but it worked out well.
It's foreclosure.
Exactly. It was a real desirable neighborhood. It was in rough shape. I did about $100,000 in rehab on that one, which made me kind of nervous. I think you looked at that property, you said as well.
I did.
And it was a major overhaul. But took about 6 months to do, and then another few weeks to sell it. I mean, know how desirable that neighborhood is, and the market's so hot right now that it sold in a couple of weeks. So that was nice.
Yeah, like we were talking about with that one, it was kind of sweet that it actually took that long to do because the market was climbing so fast as you were working on it that, you know, by the time you finished it, those 6 months, the market went up quite a bit just in those 6 months, especially in that neighborhood. That's one of the most desirable neighborhoods, and there was just no inventory in that neighborhood. So
it really is.
It actually played to your advantage in the end.
It did, yeah. I didn't know that at the time, but
you obviously don't want to bank on that going into projects, but
like the way, your stupidity kind of works out for the best of you. That's learning experiences, right?
Sure.
So, as far as my history, I grew up in California, Southern California, an hour north of LA. Went to high school there. Got a scholarship, actually, football scholarship to play in Michigan State.
Oh, wow.
So I traveled back there, in my 20s, finished out college, got an accounting degree. So, I'm good at numbers in this business, has a lot to do with numbers. So I'm comfortable with those, and those don't scare me that much. Came back to California, married my high school sweetheart. We've been together 40 years now, so you can kind of guess how old I am.
Wow.
Moved up to Washington kind of to get a fresh start. California, the market there was taking off. We couldn't afford to live in our hometown anymore. So we came up here. We kept the house that we had down there. So that became my first rental. So that was really my introduction into the real estate market. That was now 24 years ago. So we kept that rental for about a year, and the tenant there ended up buying it. So that worked out really well for us. So we moved up here, lived in Sun Valley for a few years. So I got to know that area a little bit. Then we moved to the Geneva area, and at the same time, a property just behind us became available. It was just a mobile home on a piece of property. We ended up buying it for 80 grand, got a good deal on it. And my wife's brother moved into it. So my second rental was with a family member, and that's, a double-edged sword as well.
Absolutely.
And then a couple of years passed by, and then 2008, the market was just kind of at the peak.
Mm-hmm.
And we bought the cheapest house in Bellingham, literally the cheapest house, and it went for 140. And this was a dump, a little 2-bedroom, 1-bath, just a piece of what. But we bought that for my son, so we put some money into it. He lived there he still lives there actually. So that was my third rental, right? I got two family members living in two different rentals.
Interesting, huh?
And I haven't made a whole lot of money on those. Basically those are cash flow neutral, right?
Yeah.
But the appreciation of the property is made up for it, So, and then crazy enough, our third or fourth rental became inherited from her aunt that died. Okay, so that's really been the only true rental I've had in the past several years. And right now, my current project is to really, I've got a notice into him to be out by the end of the month, and we're going to go in and kind of assess where that property stands, and then because of the hotness of the market right now, we're going to put that up for sale. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
So
yeah, Bryan. So
yeah, go for it. Huh?
Yeah, I was going to ask Bryan, could you kind of share roughly, I guess, what you're looking for right now? Are you looking for single family, multifamily, so everyone on the page kind of know what you're looking for. So if they do come across, obviously, be able to help you out.
I mean, I have mixed emotions about single family rentals, and that's all I've owned. Haven't had any multifamilies. I forgot to mention, we do have a couple houses that through a bunch of education programs we went through. We have a couple properties in Detroit as well, thinking that market was gonna, be up and coming. One of those burned down in the last year. So.
Oh wow!
God.
So I haven't had, I got mixed emotions about single family rentals. I really do. I hate to see people move in there, not take care of them, and see them kind of deteriorate that way. So I think if I were to do another rental, it would be a multi-unit complex. I think there's some efficiencies and some economies of scale to be gained there.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm always looking for the single family flips, you know. So if someone were to want a wholesale property, they have some inside information on a property coming up, I'd certainly want to consider that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think as far as passive income, my preference, I think, would be either a mobile home park or a storage facility. So, I mean, if anybody has one of those for sale, I'd certainly consider that.
I've seen that, and especially in the last 6 or 7 or 8 months, is a lot of investors I'm talking to are starting to look at the mobile home and storage and parking lot things across the country. It seems like that's kind of a thing that a lot of people are trending towards and seeing as a good investment right now. So that is definitely something to look into.
It's real attractive to have the low overhead, low maintenance, low
maintenance, yeah. Especially storage and wow, yeah, not very much maintenance.
Exactly.
So
I haven't the ones I've talked to, there hasn't been a single person who has wanted to give that up. So you know that they're paying a lot of cash, and it's a good business to be in.
So now let us get into. Colin, do you have any other questions before I get into this?
Nope.
Okay. I like to finish with these 4 questions, so I'm gonna hit with these 4. You can go for it. First one. Books you think every real estate entrepreneur should read, or anyone that you've read recently that you like?
Well, I just finished up, or I kind of in the middle of it, actually, one by a guy named Ron LeGrand. It's entitled How to Be a Quick Turn Real Estate Entrepreneur in Any Economy. So I've gone through that. A lot of it was for the first-time investor. So I knew quite a bit of it, but I'm always looking for that, that diamond in the rough, that gem, that little, tidbit that stands out. He covers a lot of topics, the lease to owns, the wholesaling, really gets into how to negotiate deals with different owners.
Seems like one that a lot of people on this page should actually read. Then I haven't read it myself, but.
Yeah, no, he's one of these guys that have done hundreds of flips and all that kind of thing. So he's very knowledgeable. Also, I've spent a lot of money in real estate education, seminars, that kind of stuff. So in between projects right now, I'm kind of going through all those notes and refreshing my memory on all those aspects of real estate. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now.
I definitely see that too. Is the same thing I do. Is you might know a lot if you go to a seminar stuff, or maybe there's a lot of sales pitchy stuff. But I feel like most of the time you can get at least one good tidbit that you can instantly insert into your business almost every single time you go to one of those.
Well, and sometimes they're so overloaded with information that you don't grasp it all the first time around. Yeah, or it's
the exact opposite. Yeah, like you just said. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. You are in an elevator with somebody. They know Bryan, you're a real estate investor. They look at you and say, hey, what are some quick and dirty tips to become a real estate investor? I know nothing. What would you tell them?
Probably hook up with someone like you, an agent, that can kind of just familiarize themselves with the town they live in. I'd suggest them to stay local at first, kind of get a good feel for the market, understand what houses sell for in that market, in that town, whether it's Bellingham or Whatcom County, just kind of pick and choose a good area that they can really get familiar with and knowledgeable on. Go to these REAPS meetings. They got an association in town that is really a phenomenal group. They came up from Seattle, and they're one of the more established associations in the country, really. So it's a tremendous resource to meet people. I'm not a real outgoing kind of guy, so it's hard for me. I'm more reserved, and not like Con, where I can just wheel and deal with. It steps up to you. So I wish I was more like that. And
that's something that we have definitely in common, Bryan.
So those are a couple things. There's just a bunch of tips. The biggest tip, I think, is don't be afraid. And there's a lot of areas where people have fears, and the more you do something, you overcome those fears. You know, you guys are familiar with that. I mean, you make mistakes along the way. Don't be afraid to make a mistake, as long as it's an educated guess on something. You don't want to go willy-nilly and, you know, make some real costly mistakes, even though I've done that as well. Try to avoid those as best you can. So, I mean, if you were to hook up with a guy like Kong or yourself, Diskin, that really knows a lot and I guess becomes a tutor, you know, or a mentor kind of thing, then that would be a good suggestion that I would make.
Perfect.
Well, thanks, Bryan.
Thank you. Next one. If you were to start over,
off the hook now.
If you were to start over on, let's say, the Sudden Valley or even the I Street property, let's just go the last two that you talked about. What would you do differently? What did you learn through the process? You're like, you know what, I actually could have made some more money, or I would have saved some time if I had done this. What would you say for those?
For me, I'm kind of a control freak in that I like to be there a lot of the time and just have my finger on the pulse of the project. I'm still doing probably half the work myself. You know, I've got a good team built up, so I think that's important, is to find, you know, a good carpenter, a couple contractors that do roofs and flooring and that kind of thing. So I think the place where I've fallen down is taking too much time on the project. Sometimes I overdevelop the project. You know, you get caught up in doing things maybe that are a little higher grade than the neighborhood needs to be. You know what I mean? Maybe you know, a material for the countertop would suffice, and yet you go in and put marble or granite or something, right? So be aware of those kind of things.
Kong, do you know anything about that?
Oh yes, man.
That happened a few times.
The Roman pillars and that kind of stuff in front of it.
The Roman pillars. Perfect. Finally, how can people get a hold of you if they either have a deal or have a question or something like that? How can they reach you?
You know, the best way to reach me would be by phone. And, you know, like I said, the market moves so quickly right now that you get lost in emails and that kind of thing, then some opportunities could be missed. So my number is 360-927-0444. And that'd be the best way to get hold of me for questions, or if deals come up, I'd certainly want to take a look at them.
Perfect. Well, that is all I had. So thank you very much for doing this with us. And Kong, anything else?
Nope, that's it, Bryan. Thanks a lot for your time. Really appreciate it. Hope everyone gets some knowledge out of this, and connect with Bryan.
Yeah.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Thanks, Bryan.
Thanks a lot, you guys. Have a great day. Bye.